I've already figured out the Republican Party, aside from a handful of members, is not working for us, but in fact purposefully and actively against our will. But it wasn't until the last few months I realized how deeply seated their duplicity and disgust for and against us truly ran. When I say us, I refer to conservatives, Tea Party, other people along those lines. But I couldn't figure out their game plan. There had to be something more to it than simply electing Jeb and blaming their numbers in Congress. Until now. The unoriginal bastards the GOP establishment and Republican progressives are, they've ran their game too long, and because of that, I now have hindsight. Hindsight and a few pieces missing from the puzzle have led me, I believe, to figuring it out. Remember a few years ago when Obama was trying to ram one of his trillion-dollar budgets through, at least two of which got 0 votes from the Democrats, and Boner kept negotiating, drawing it out, making us think he was fighting the Marxist-in-chief, promoting fiscal responsibility? Well, many of you may have forgotten, if you even heard about it at all, that a few months later we learned that behind closed doors, Boner had not only offered to give the toadist whatever he wanted, but maybe even the power to essentially write his own checks. Without our knowledge or consent, Boner was not only wantingly to cheerfully capitulate, but abdicate the power of the purse of the House to the executive branch. Not only was this mind-bogglingly stupid, but it was extraordinarily dangerous to a constitutional republic, even if we aren't acting like one right now. It made Neville Chamberlain look like Milton Friedman. Fortunately for us, in order to give the American people the perception the GOP wouldn't cooperate, Obama declined. Party politics saved us. So, Boner lied. Why? Every continuing resolution and multi-million-dollar budget bill Boner cried or gave lip service against, that I recollect, he ultimately surrendered on and got enough Republicans to vote for. Why? Right now, Senate rules could be amended to create a veto-proof majority to repeal Obamacare tax, but the GOP establishment there won't. Why? The overwhelming vast majority of Americans don't want incognito comprehensive amnesty. Ditto people who came here legally, as one news story a few months ago illuminated. Yet the House voted to fund the executive order, and many Republicans are still yammering on about the immigration system needs to be comprehensively reformed and people here given amnesty. Why? I thought I had a good idea of their plan, but then it really hit home for me what it truly was while listening to a rerun of Mark Levin's radio program from early 2011. Remember, hindsight can shed light where previously not possible. In the episode, he played audio I'd completely 100% forgotten about. When we think of hot mic moments involving Obama, we think of two, namely his one about having more flexibility for Putin after his re-election was over. But over a year before that, he had what may be his first hot mic moment as president. Not realizing his microphone was still on, he told supporters at a fundraiser of his conversations with the then minority party GOP. All the lies, all the class warfare, the passage of Obamacare tax, constant attacks on the GOP, none of it mattered in the story he told to supporters off the record. While arguing over the budget, Obama said a GOP staffer, apparently the minority party leader was too busy to get his ass out there, told Obama he didn't understand that the GOP had lost the healthcare debate and that they needed something they could go back and rally the caucus around. The Constitution didn't matter, the will of the American people didn't matter, and apparently they didn't even give Obama the stern lecturing, or the business, he should have gotten since his youth. No, it was all about finding an issue the party could rally around and trumpet before the American people. Why? Well, as others have said in recent times, the current Republican establishment and the radical Democrat Party are now two sides of the same coin. They just disagree on how to get where they're going and at what speed. But in order to steadily get there, there must be a plan, and I said, I think I figured it out. I gave some examples of the party's actions and rhetorically asked, why? You add in their actions, throw in Jeb Bush and a dash of inside the Beltway nepotism, and you've made one hell of an answer or a GOP fruitcake. What is this plan I've referred to? I've nicknamed it neurotic progressive complacency. Confused? Well, so are they. At least you're cognizant enough to realize and admit it. A leopard doesn't change its spots, and somebody set in their ways, or even content with said ways for a long time, is unlikely to change and becomes complacent. Going upon these basic facts of life and what the GOP establishment has done, these 2 terms under Obama, I think it's clear they strongly believe this is just another presidency, and Obama really just means well, but likes to play party politics. In alternate words, to clear it up for you, the GOP establishment and progressives, there's no difference between now and the 1990s. For them, we're switching from Clinton to Bush, only difference being Clinton in the race instead of office. If it isn't clear to you yet, the GOP plan is a continuation of where they last left off under Bush. I know, it's hard to grasp, but they want that back. They want that trifecta of power back so they can continue to push progressive policies, only at their pace and their wording. They want the return of the Bush monarchy, and they want to go back to spending like they were under Bush. I know you don't believe me. Surely, after trillions of dollars wasted under Obama, the Republicans wouldn't be stupid enough to be spending like that again, right? I disagree. They'll tell us that it's at least not as high as Obama levels, and they'll have every excuse under the sun to not cut it back. They'll ignore baseline budgeting and funding increases to various agencies Obama's Democratic Congress made, and give another lame-ass plan that cuts a few billion over a decade, in other words, a plan other Congresses won't be bound to, and claim it's the best they can do. Cuts that won't even decrease the deficit, but only pay off the interest for a few years. Why? Because they're neurotic progressives, and their progressive king Jeb Bush will usher in the deja vu era of lackluster progressive-topia. Jeb will be their most willing patsy, a patsy who will give his signature to bills that codify more amnesty, unneeded immigration reform, which will not include destruction of the anchor baby law, repeal and replacement of Obamacare tax, which will be just an amended variant of it, in other words, Obamacare 2.0, maybe even codifying a new version of Common Core, among other things. All of us conservatives and Tea Party activists will be ungrateful lunatic fringe bastards for not thanking His Majesty Jeb for throwing us a few chicken bones now and then. And of course, Karl Rove won't shut the fuck up because he finally got one right after a few decades. It's the GOP glory days of high spending and spectacular non-accomplishments. All the while, to them, it will just be a return, a most welcomed one for them, of the 1990s. Many happy returns. They will ease into their familiar complacency like a well-worn butt groove in a lazy boy recliner. And then another 4 million people will stay home for the midterms and will needlessly lose the House and the Senate. And then they'll willfully capitulate to the Democrats. Oh well, win some, lose some, just part of the Washington game, as they might say. They want the power. They want the purses they see fit, and they want parts of the system the Democrats have put in place. They have no intentions of fixing things, because as they see it, it's not broken. In other words, they've learned nothing from these past few years, and are prepared to squander their power giving us the finger the whole time. A third party isn't a viable option right now, and the term itself is an oxymoron since there are at least a dozen other parties, including people who just write in make-believe parties like Jedi. And I'm not making that up, by the way. But let us recall the Republican Party was formed in the ashes of the Whig Party after the Whigs flew in the face of the people and made themselves irrelevant. Boys, you're making yourself irrelevant and are starting to circle the drain and join the Whigs in the drainpipe of history. I didn't leave the Republican Party. They left me. I'm registered, but I won't vote for a Jeb, a Romney, or some other progressive loser. I worry that many more Americans are at that point too. Why worry? The complacent and malevolent GOP establishment is costing us the 2016 presidency, and barely anybody has announced yet. The election is by no means certain. The retainment of the House is now in doubt, and I can't say we'll hold the Senate either. We're at the complete opposite of where we should be headed as a party now. I'm starting to think Talkeetna, Alaska has it right. As of 2015, for over 15 years, they have again and again re-elected for mayor a cat named Stubbs. Stubbs is looking pretty damn good for Speaker of the House right now, isn't he? Well, I have a plan too. Oh, it's not original, but to quote Glenn Beck, hashtag defund the GOP.